Okay, the NFL Week 2 predictions. So, looking at the first game, you have the Dolphins versus the Bills on Thursday Night Football, the first Thursday Night Football of the year. Both of these teams, they're 1-0, but neither of these teams look that good in Week 1. The Bills, their offense looked sluggish early on, but then they figured it out. However, I'm very still concerned about that Bills defense, allowing 20 points, 21 points to the Cardinals. But they did do a lot better in the second half, and same thing with the Dolphins. Similar story to the Dolphins. They did not look good in the first half, neither defense nor offense, but in the second half they really got together. So I think this one is going to be a test of who knocks off that rust first. And I think with the Dolphins' home field advantage and the Bills having to travel in a short week, I gotta take the Dolphins here. I just think the Dolphins will knock off that rust first, and I think those speedsters will take advantage of a relatively new Bills like young Bills defense. But then you have your Titans versus the Jets. Both of these teams lost week 1, but one team looked better than the other. And the Titans, they looked horrible in week 1. They blew a 17-0 lead. Will Levis did not do good. Um, However, the Jets, I wasn't super impressed with the Jets against the 49ers. Their defense I thought was a lot worse than I expected, and Rodgers is hit or miss right now. However, Rodgers is an experienced quarterback, and Will Levis will probably struggle versus that Jets defense. I'm taking the Jets here. And you have the Jaguars versus the Browns. Browns coming off a terrible game versus the Cowboys, while the Jaguars choking against the Dolphins. Um, Deshaun Watson, don't trust the guy. Jags look like they have a good defense and they contain the Dolphins, so I think they're gonna cause problems for Deshaun Watson. And that Browns defense did not look good versus the Cowboys, and that Jaguars offense isn't bad, so I'm gonna take the Jaguars here. Then you have the Ravens versus the Raiders. I don't see the Ravens starting off 0-2. They lost by a toe to the Chiefs, and the Raiders, they were so conservative against the Chargers, and I don't see that conservativeness like beating the Ravens. And even though the Raiders had a very good defense, I don't see them stopping Derrick Henry. The Ravens should contain that Raiders offense. I'm taking the Ravens here. You have the Broncos versus the Steelers. Steelers offense is terrible. However, they have a very good defense, and that Broncos offense is not was Bo Nix did not look good, and I don't expect him to be good against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I'm taking the Steelers here. Then you have the Chiefs versus the Bengals. Bengals, like I expected, they start off really slow in the beginning of the year. The Chiefs, they looked fine. They look like the regular old Chiefs versus the Ravens, and the Bengals with their slow ass starts, and I don't trust that Bengals defense. So I'm gonna take the Chiefs here. Then you have the Packers versus the Colts. Jordan Love is not playing in this game, and I was not impressed with that Packers defense. They let up a lot of points to Jalen Hurts and Saquon, and the Colts, they have, even though Anthony Richardson is very inconsistent, the Richardson can make those big plays, and Jonathan Taylor is a very good running back. I just don't see the Packers keeping up with the Colts, so I'm going to take the Colts here. Then you have the Chargers versus the Panthers. Panthers look terrible in week 1, and I don't expect them to get better significantly in week 2. Well, the Chargers, they won. They win ugly, and I expect the Chargers again to win ugly. They're going to run the ball down the Panthers' throat, so I'm going to take the Chargers here. And you have the Patriots versus the Seahawks. I know the Seahawks are favored, but this one could easily be an upset game. The Patriots, their defense looked really good. However, their offense was not that impressive. While the Seahawks, I thought their defense was pretty good. I think that alone, I think the Seahawks defense will get them the win here. And that Seahawks offense will do enough, so I'm going to take the Seahawks. You have the Bears versus the Texans on Sunday Night Football. This one, I think, could be a good game. However, the Bears, Caleb Williams is just not there yet. Hunter and whoever the other Texans, Will Anderson, will cause, I think, lots of problems for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams still has those college habits, and I think that Bears defense can only do that much versus those trio of Texans offense and Joe Mixon, so I'm going to take the Texans here. You have the Vikings versus the Niners. Vikings had a very good week 1 game versus the Giants. However, the Niners, their defense played really well, and that Niners offense I think will be too much, so I'm taking the Niners here. Then you have the Cowboys versus the Saints. The Saints played probably arguably the best week 1 game. They blew out the Panthers. However, the Cowboys are better than the Panthers. The Cowboys blew out the Browns. Um, I think the Cowboys are just more well-rounded. I trust Dak Prescott more than Derek Carr. I'm taking the Cowboys here, especially with home field advantage. Then you have the Commanders versus the Giants. Both these teams coming off losses. Commanders, they lost to the Buccaneers. The Giants, they lost to the Vikings, and neither team looked particularly well against their Week 1 opponent. But Daniel Jones looks horrible. Even though the Commanders' defense is terrible, I'm not expecting much out of Daniel Jones, and that Giants' defense did not look good. So I'm going to take the Commanders. At least they looked somewhat competent, somewhat decent. Then you have the Lions versus the Bucks. I expect this to be a shootout. Um, Lions looked rusty in week 1. I expect them to bounce back in week 2. While the Bucks looked really good in week 1. However, I think that the Bucks can match the Lions in terms of offense. However, I don't think the Bucks have a good enough defense against the Lions have a better defense. So I'm taking the Lions here. Then you have the Rams versus the Cardinals. Both these teams look good in their losses. The Cardinals almost beat the Bills, while the Rams took the Lions to overtime. And um, Cardinals are a scrappy team. I can easily see the Cardinals beating the Rams. However, like the Rams have almost always dominate the Cardinals for some reason, so I'm taking the Rams here. You have the Monday night, the Eagles versus the Falcons. I also expect this to be a shootout. I don't think that the Eagles have figured it out on defense yet. Kirk Cousins still looks like he's injured. However, like I said, I don't trust that Eagles defense. However, that Falcons defense, I'm not expecting too much, and I think Saquon and that Jalen Hurts will do wonders. I'm gonna take the Eagles here. So there you have it, my NFL Week 2 predictions.